buenos dias, buenos dias, buenos dias. Buenos dias. Amigos. Buenos dias. Buenos dias. Buenos dias. So, another day in paradise. This is an interesting space we're in right now. Mentally. I could make proper videos using the camera and not this live software. But then, I don't know when they're going to get uploaded, even if they're in sync. So I've been choosing to do it this way. I like it this way. If you guys, well, here we are. I'm gonna turn the camera at some point. It's maybe already turned. Or it maybe will turn in a while, but this is paradise here. It's interesting to record videos knowing that they're not what you want them to be, but still doing it. I just need to hide the mouth. It's going to develop into something interesting. We'll see. There we go. This is like the ultimate down angle. And I get this beautiful little swastika line. I really, other than the brutally murdering people, I definitely see a lot of interesting things in Charles Manson. So for you guys that watch my Plotagons, you know that I have this interest, and sort of totally uninformed ideas about cluster B, well, really just borderline personality disorder, and then narcissistic, and how borderlines and narcissists interact with each other, particularly female borderlines and male narcissists, but also just understanding the two disorders as understanding their relationship to each other, just as understanding how the two concepts are related to each other. And sort of doing so in a kind of like spiritual, non-medical kind of way. Because I really, I mean, it's like, there's so many things that are like a lens through which you can view the world and be like, oh, this exists because like I see it everywhere, but like, you can do that with just about anything, but for whatever reason, like, that lens, not a medical lens in general, but when it comes to those things, I think is interesting to see them and then try to then bring it out of a medical context and like try to observe what those phenomena are. And I guess I've been trying for a while now to like have a cute kind of singular way to frame it. And I was thinking this morning, like, if it's something like borderlines see other people as being wrong by default, and narcissists see themselves as being wrong by default. So in both cases, it's like a hyper-awareness of yourself, and the way that happens, like it's yourself in relation to the people around you. And it just gets cast in that different way. Because, I don't know, like a lot of times people think that borderlines are narcissists because, like in like layperson talk, like narcissism you think is like an obsession with yourself. But for borderlines, it's really different because it's, I don't know, as someone that I feel like has a lot of narcissist qualities, like the borderline is like sort of like what I would want to be, like, because they come off as so free in like the way they act, where for me it's like everything needs to be like calculated and like thought about, where for them it seems like they'll just do things like on a whim. And I think, narcissists are interesting to borderlines because we're so cerebral, and I mean, they are too in their own way. Like, a lot of times they're really smart, but like, I don't know. Like, I feel like I could sit down and like think about what I was going to say first, but like, I feel like there's a real lack of content out there of people that like don't fully understand their ideas when they're talking about them and are like intentionally showing the coming to understanding process, especially with art, but with ideas too. I think this is the more interesting part than if I actually knew what I was saying. Like, and it was already finished. But yeah, for borderlines, it seems like they can like convince themselves that anything is a good idea. And that's sort of where it feels like it's very much like they're opposites, because I feel like as a narcissist you can convince yourself that anything is not a good idea. I guess in the past, like when I'm trying to like talk about both of them at the same time, it's always about like the interaction between a borderline and a narcissist. And there's like a lot of comparisons you can draw, but I guess what I'm trying to do now is to understand them independently together. Like, to talk about them independently at the same time. Yeah, I guess I associate being a borderline more with action and being a narcissist more with contemplation. And borderlines can be sort of more empathetic in a sense, like they can really feel and sense what's around them and have like a emotional intuition with people. But for them, they'll take that and like they act, I guess. Well, or they, I mean, I think of like the term borderline as like, you know, crossing into someone else's space. Which narcissists sort of do that too, though. But it's different. Like, that's, the thing is, like, when you just, like, talk about it, it's like it sounds so similar, but, like, when you see it, it's, like, so obviously different. And it's not just that, like, I'm sounding like borderlines are just, like, more confident. Because that's definitely not true. But it's that they're like, I feel like it's like a different thing that makes you a borderline or a narcissist. Like, there are different problems that you're trying to solve. Like, they have to do with, like, love, but I don't know. I feel like with borderlines, it can be so much more serious. Like, for them, it's so much harder. Oh my god. It's really, it's challenging to make a video like this where I'm just sort of like fumbling over my words and talking. I really enjoy it though. I enjoy. Because for them, it's like there's this, I feel like, fundamental distrust of other people that like runs so deeply inside them. And so they're always guarded, which again is also true for narcissists, sort of. But when you're a narcissist, you're trying to like leech off of other people's you're trying to access love in other people while continuing to guard yourself. And borderlines are more like trying to get that attention from other people. well, they both want attention and affection. That's not the best way to frame it, but it's sort of like the consequences of a borderline's actions are the results that a narcissist would want to have in regards to like being really admired and being really like, you know, having people totally like infatuated with you. Like that's what a narcissist wants, but that's what borderlines end up getting. And it almost works the other way too. Like I feel like narcissists end up being very loved. Like too much, which is like, I mean, borderlines need, I think, way more love than even average people need. Which is a lot more than I think most people realize. You know, for me, like narcissism is such a more, or narcissistic personality disorder is such a more like comfortable thing to like see, because that's just like what I'm used to. Like that's sort of like what I see as being normal, weirdly. And being a borderline feels like dangerous, and being like, you know, extroverted in that kind of way, and like flirtatious, and, you know, coming off as like so confident. Like it's odd though, because like, you know, I feel like narcissistic personality disorder is like, you know, associated with like delusions of grandeur and sort of like having this really low self-image that you counter with this false self that's like so great, like impossibly great, and that's sort of who you like internally like dishonestly see yourself as, sort of, or like that's what you expect of yourself, or like kind of project like you have this love of yourself, like you're that sort of, but it's not you. So it's kind of all within that realm of like none of this is actually real, but that's going on like inside, you know, like me, for example. But as a borderline, you sort of have this like extremely low confidence, but you act like, I don't know, like you just do things like you just like approach people and are just like, hey, I mean, it's remarkable to me. Like, cause I'm afraid to like hate anybody. Like, I'm afraid of the consequences of like disliking another person, or like potentially closing myself off from another, you know, thing that would feed my narcissistic supply, like walking on anyone's toes, or like making enemies. So I'll like avoid that, like I'll avoid confrontation. But it seems like for borderlines, like, you know, they'll take the confrontation. They just like, you know, I feel like everything that happens inside of my head, like, happens, like, externally in, like, a borderline's life. And I don't know which one is better. Like, that's the stupidest question, but, like, like, what I'm really trying to do now is just get the words out that, like, well, it's not just the words, it's also the ideas that the words represent, but, like, getting that formula there, because they're tough to explain. They're tough enough to explain individually, but, like, in relation to each other, that's what I want to do. And maybe I'm not the one to do it, because I feel like, you know, my view of borderlines are so skewed by, like, how they, you know, how I allow myself to affect my own life in relation to them. I feel like they're not able to sort of, like, close themselves off from the pain by working inside their own heads. I think that's a distinction. Is, like, if I'm feeling bad in any way, I can, you know, mentally set up the walls that'll make it so that the pain goes away. You know, I don't need to act out. And for them, I don't think that they have that capacity. Like, they need to, you know, get into trouble or get fucked up or have sex. They don't have as much of a, like, well, I don't know. I honestly don't know, because I've never been a borderline before, but, like, for me, I feel like my, like, relationship with myself, I mean, maybe it's because I spend a lot of time alone, but I feel like that's just, like, been a big feature of my life since, like, adolescence. And I'm sure that's, like, for every person, that's, like, when that becomes a thing and sort of grows, but honestly, even when I was a kid, I think that I had sort of more of a capacity to, like, see things in my own mind that didn't feel as though, like, I was creating them, and then having whatever negotiations with that content. Like, I'm stuck right now, I guess, on this whole action thing that, like, there are these negotiations, like, that happen inside borderlines' heads too, but they seem to, like, revolve around, like, doing things and, like, the results that come from, like, taking actions, or, like, I mean, you don't know what the results are going to be, but, like, that's what you're, I don't know, it's just, like, I don't have that in me where I'm, like, compelled to, like, do a thing, you know? It's like, or if I'm doing an action, then it's not, it's reactive to, well, that's a whole other thing to get into. This is great. I feel like as poorly a job I do at articulating this, the better, because
then it's that fresh content. There's a lot of cactuses around here.
I didn't know there were cactuses here.
I don't know if you can see that. Those cacti. I don't really have a gauge yet for like where the camera is in relation to this. Also, where the lag is. Oh, also I took you off of your pedestal, so let's see if we can get this back. Oh, there's a turtle on a log. It almost looks like the log is shaped like a turtle. But I think that's a turtle. But it's not moving. Let me upload this in case it dies.